How confident are you can get to 210 million then, given the challenges around Boeing?
I'm hopeful. There's a big vote taking place in Seattle tonight. Labour union hopefully going to accept the latest deal on the table from management, and we would like to then start seeing our aircraft coming in. This is our best guess on what might happen. We were due to get 11 aircraft in the quarter between September and December. We've received 2 of those. I don't think we'll see any more aircraft this side of January or February. We look like we could be left short 10 aircraft, possibly more, into peak summer of 2025. We're now planning on the basis, as you said, of 210 million passengers instead of 215. We had the situation this summer and last summer where we were overcrewed, we were overscheduled, and we just don't want to be there again. So even if we do get some more aircraft, we'll use those as operational spares. So I'm hopeful rather than confident that I'll see those aircraft coming in. And as I said, we're now planning on the lower growth.
So you're planning, to be clear, you're planning on 10 fewer aircraft than you'd expected for that peak summer season next year. What does it mean for fares and pricing? Because fares have come down, 7% in the most recent quarter.
Yeah,
do you see further softness in fares to bring customers in?
In fairness, I think the declines are moderating. Bookings are strong into Q3. We think fares will be still modestly down. We're somewhat cautious on Q3, but I think it's in a better place than it was. We had the impact in Q1 of the absence of Easter. The consumers have been dealing with higher interest rates for longer. They're starting to unwind in Europe now at this point in time. Consumers seems to be a bit more confident. Capacity is definitely constrained. We just talked about Boeing there. Airbus are having problems getting aircraft out the door as well with the Pratt & Whitney engine issue. We're seeing consolidation playing out with ITA and Lufthansa, and TAP is going to go up for sale. So I think capacity is going to be constrained for some time, which would indicate that potentially more risks to the upside than the downside on pricing. But it's too early to...
More risks to the upside than the downside on pricing. What's the outlook for the winter season?
Well, we aren't guiding for the full year. We have said in Q3, booking strong, fare declines moderating, so a modest decrease. Q4, we won't have an Easter in there. We've got less than 10% of our bookings in the bag, so it's just too early to call where that might actually go for the Q4 period.
Are you going to be cutting flights next year?
Well, as I said, we're planning on the base of 210 million passengers, which is below where we were. So we've got plenty of time out. We hope we won't be. But, it all depends on whether we get the aircraft from Boeing or not.
Where would you look to cut? Is there an obvious place?
Well, I think if you look at the likes of the UK, for example, where we're now looking at another €2 APD coming through. We've a situation where the Swedish, for example, are cutting their APD. We've got the Hungarians cutting back. We've got the Italians in parts of the regions cutting back on their municipal taxes. And at the same time, we're seeing increases coming in here. So I think that can't be good for the regional UK. Germany cost base is too high at the moment, so we've pulled capacity out of Germany. The reality is, if we've got less capacity, we've got more airports than we have capacity to fill that. So we're going to go with the best opportunities. And
to be clear to our audience, you're talking about, of course, the budget and the increase in passenger duty here in the UK. And you and the team have been quite vocal on that.
Which was a negative step for obviously the UK.
So to be clear, you are considering cutting some routes, or at least cutting some flights in the UK as a result of that, to mitigate that?
There's a high chance we will.
Where would you be looking?
Well, I think the regions are going to suffer more than London. So you'd see possibly parts of Scotland, parts of middle UK, but it's all up for play. I think it was a backward step for a government that said they were trying to stimulate growth and trying to stimulate tourism to do that in the budget last week. But, that's just one of a number of regions which are not stimulating growth. We've got lots of countries which are stimulating growth, and we're very happy to grow there.
Neil, before we let you go, what's happening in terms of, getting back to the Boeing question, the certification of the MAX 10? What is your best guess in terms of the timing for that?
Yeah, it hasn't changed, Tom. So the MAX 10 won't be certified until the MAX 7 is certified. At this stage, I think the 7 will be certified somewhere in the first half of 2025. That would leave the 10 to be certified in the back half of 2025, and then we'll still receive our first MAX 10 in H1 2027. So no changes there. If anything,
are you confident that happens, that time frame?
Look, you can never be fully confident, but I think the one thing about the strike is that there's been more time for the FAA and for Boeing to concentrate on the certification process, so that may have actually accelerated that.